welcome to another episode of Musso. We are your hosts, Jama, Hadi, and Gone. On this podcast, we share a microphone for fresh conversations on current affairs and women's realities beyond a single story. It's absolutely wonderful to be back here today. Thank you all for the awesome feedback we've been receiving on the episodes we've already put out. And thank you for joining us again on this new episode. Hi, Hadi. Hi, Ngone. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jama. We're good, alive, surviving. Still on this pandemic, but alhamdulillah, we're okay. I'm okay.
Hadi?
It's been okay. Like Ngo said, just trying to survive the panini press. Pressing real hard, though.
But yeah, it's good to be back here. Good to be back and continuing to do this. Just sitting around our microphone and doing what we do best. Just talking. Sharing our thoughts.
That's all we do, literally. Talk.
So to get into the episode, as usual, we've selected a very fine quote, and it's from none other than
Beyonce.
My goodness.
Beyonce Diesel.
I'm just going to put a disclaimer. I did not agree for us to use this quote.
You were outvoted.
But I was bullied. I was bullied into actually taking this by these two beehive. I don't even know what to call them.
It wasn't bullying. We put it to a vote. 2 against 1. Democracy won. We won. So please just read the quote.
Democracy is winning.
Yes.
Wow.
So,
This is why people are advocating for our own African systems. What's democracy?
Money, just read the quote.
So yeah, our quote of the week is from the Queen Bee herself, Beyonce. And it says, "You can actually work super hard and give everything you have and still lose. It was the best message for me. The reality is sometimes you lose. And you're never too good to lose. You're never too big to lose. You're never too smart to lose. It happens, and it happens when it needs to happen."
I hear that.
Amen.
my queen can sing, my queen can talk, my queen can rap, my queen can act. What can Beyonce do?
Our queen is everything.
And she's still here telling us that she loses sometimes too.
Yeah.
Love it.
And those lines, you're never too good to lose. You're never too big to lose. You're never too smart to lose.
I think it's always important for everyone to remember that because sometimes, anyway.
Yeah, and the last one, even, it happens, and it happens when it needs to happen.
Yeah.
Basically, you can't do anything
can't
about
control
it.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nice way to segue into our topic for today. We're discussing failure. So we're discussing yeah, you can already feel the heaviness in the topic. So we're discussing failure, and the reason we decided to do this is because generally we just don't discuss failure in our society. There is a very heavy fixation on success and what success looks like, and who's succeeding, who's not succeeding, and how much respect you get if you're succeeding, how much respect you do not get if you're not succeeding based on the terms and the markers that have been set by society. So we just decided, you know what, let's talk about failure because we've been here quite some time, right, in this world, and obviously it's not all been peaches and cream. We have had our setbacks, we've had our losses, we've had our failures. So for the next, several minutes, it could get to an hour, I don't know. We'll be talking about failure generally, just what our thoughts are, what our experiences have been, and basically how that impacts on our lives. So what generally do we have as expectations growing up in a Gambian home? So we just keep to the Gambian context, of course. What are those heavy expectations that we've had to carry on our shoulders all our lives, just so people can look at us and say, "Ki mom never take it. Ki mashallah," like they say.
Ooh, this is a heavy one.
Yeah.
I think generally as Gambians, success is described in many ways. You're expected to succeed in many ways. You're expected to succeed in school, be a top student, and then from school, the next step for success is getting a good job, a well-paying job. Being able to buy a car, build a house, take care of your families, take your parents to Mecca if you're Muslim, or, pilgrimage if you're Christian, and things like that. And even in terms of, what you do in your personal life, as in getting married is seen as a mark of success. So it's like this what's it called, requirement to succeed is all around us. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it takes a heavy toll on the average young Gambian, because it's like there's always this pressure to fulfill your parents' desire to see you succeed, because you succeeding is also a way of making them proud. Sigil them down, it's a way that they can be like, they can be boastful, sort of like, oh, my child did this, my child achieved this, my child did very well in it, or my child had 9 credits, my child enrolled into university, they got a scholarship, they did this, they did that. So if you fall short of that, then it's like, for example, if you're doing your final grade 12 exams, you could have really good grades, but if you fail a certain course, your parents will look at it like, you didn't do well. So it doesn't matter that you had 8 credits out of 9. The mere fact that you failed or you didn't do well in one course basically just diminishes all the success you had in all the other courses. So it's like you either go all the way and then get the praise, or if you fall short of that, then you're not successful at all in that aspect. And in terms of getting jobs, how much is your job paying you? Are you able to do stuff for your family? Are you able to take care of your parents with that money? Even if you're working down to dusk, if you're not able to give your parents the lifestyle that they desire, then it's as if you're not a successful person. So, and all these things, I think, in the long run, they push young people into doing things that they're not necessarily supposed to be doing, because they want to be seen as niputeki. And personally, I think also that's why we see a lot of young people taking the back way route, the irregular migration, because it's not just about not having jobs. It's like you're growing up, and I think this is an aspect that we don't look at fully. You're a grown-up person. There are not enough jobs around. People say these young people don't want to work, but for me, a lot of the ones that I see were people who are actually hustling in this country.
People who were working in banks, just resign and go.
So you're working, you have a job, but that job is not paying you well enough for you to be able to do things for yourself and take care of your family as well. So you look at it as, okay, whether I live or die, I have to take this route so that I can succeed, so that I can fulfill society's idea of being a successful person. And a lot of young people have died as a result. And we can't blame them, because we see those who have succeeded and gone, when they come back, their parents are, hey, no, back way, let them make this a lot. If I them back way, I'm not kid, I'm not like your mates are going, they're taking this route, they're succeeding, they're doing this and this for their parents. What's wrong with you? Yeah. So
and I think that's an interesting point to bring Hadi in, because then you're also bringing in the issue of the comparisons. So it's not just about how much you succeed, it's also how much you succeed in comparison to another person. It becomes even more complicated when it's in the family setting. And in Gambia, within the extended family setting, if a cousin is doing better based on societal terms, then it becomes an even heavier burden on you. And I know when we were discussing this topic and planning for this recording, we were also looking at even how early it starts, even with babies in the home. And just their development generally. So Hadi,
I'll comment on that, but I want to go back to a point that Ngone made in terms of the back way, because even when people make it to out, quote unquote, the way that the success is gained is not necessarily just making it there, but a lot of the time it's getting into illegal stuff like selling drugs or something else of that sort. But when you're home, obviously that's a big issue. Bufi or any of that. But then once your child leaves the country to go and sell it somewhere, and you're benefiting from that money, all eyes are closed, all ears are closed. It's completely okay. It's not completely okay then, but then you can let it slide.
You basically don't care.
So that's also
well.
I mean, at some
to
how
they make that.
They even glorify it sometimes. It's like, at least Mungedef, so we don't really care how it's getting to us, but I mean the thing is coming to us. So
and it's really, really unhealthy, and it is, it's very toxic. It's scary, because it's like you're not even looking at the child's long-term well-being. You're not looking at how sustainable this income is, or if it's going to land them in jail. But yo, yang say and so that's fine. But back to what you said about the expectations we have even in the development stages as young people, like as toddlers, even from that point where the walking, the talking. Like if you have a cousin, yin yang are one, kukunon is walking. All of a sudden, like even if you haven't hit that developmental milestone yet, you're already looked at as a child that's behind. And it's the same with talking too, because not everyone develops at the same time. Not everyone develops at the same age. Sometimes you go from saying no words until you're 3, and then start saying full sentences. Sometimes you started with the half 1 word, 2 words, and you don't even start making full sentences till you're like 5 years old. So which one of them, how do you compare those two? You can't and you shouldn't to begin with, because it already puts that pressure on at an early age, when like these kids don't even know what's going on. You're already putting pressure in their heads, and they're supposed to act a certain way, they're supposed to move a certain way, they're supposed to talk a certain way. When like who's measuring that marker for success? Who told you that that's a measure for a child's form of intelligence or brilliance in the future? And it's the external family, but then that pressure ends up getting onto the parents, and then that ends up trickling down to the child. Because it's the same when it comes to, like, I know we're talking about toddler age right now, but when it comes to schooling again, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to all those things, it's external pressure that ends up trickling. Even if your parents were like, okay, you know what, my child can do whatever they want, they can take their time with the development, but you start hearing from other people that it's possible that something is wrong with your child, and then you internalize that, and then it just keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it's like it's such young ages. You have to like deal with pressure and some idea of success that no one even said that that's correct. Because like in psychology and in all these things, they're developmental stages, and they mark certain things, but those things are not set in stone. So because my child didn't start walking at 8 months, that my child is behind.
No, they can tell. They use those words slow, the fatoi, the funny, and then it also comes back, because I know growing up I used to hear this a lot around kids that are toddlers, I guess. So if you were here, you understand? So it would salam be more and for me it's also just digging deep and understanding how even that. So we had the episode that of course was talking about how we're always taught to be silent, you don't speak up. But even that is a problem. Why can't I mean, if my speaking is more advanced than my movement, why can't I speak? You understand? Why can't I do that? But it's so problematic how people just decide this is what you need to do first before you get to this point. So you need to run and walk before you begin to talk. So they are walk before then that's a problem for people. And I think that speaks to a lot of issues that we see play out in the family, and it's carried of course to other spaces outside of the home even.
And I think also because we expect people to do certain things at a certain time, if they're unable to do that, like you said, at that time, then they're seen as a failure. So, and when they're seen as a failure, they're discarded. So basically, nobody looks into or investigates the reason why this is happening. For example, if you have a toddler who has not, has still not uttered a word until when they are 2 years old, we say, instead of actually going to investigate to see why this child has the speech impairment, why are they unable to speak at this time, why aren't they talking? And it also translates, it continues when children are in school. You have some children who we regard as quote unquote stupid. We use this kind of language, this child is stupid, won't be past exam. The child is suffering from dyslexia, and they haven't been diagnosed for it. So we just see these children as children who are failing. They're failing at life. They're failing exams. So we don't even need to invest anything in them. They're not succeeding according to how we feel they should succeed. So we're not investing anything in them. We're not going to look at what's wrong with them, if it's fixable, how we can help them overcome whatever challenges they're dealing with. We just ignore these children, leave them alone because they're not succeeding according to how we want to succeed. So,
Well, I think such an important, really, really important point, especially like in terms of learning disabilities. You don't take that into consideration at all. And if you don't take something into consideration, you can't take it. So you can't have a child, that maybe that is dyslexic or has some kind of behavioral issue, So how many? Okay, this is not my child's strong point, or my child is my child is struggling this much in this class, you can find ways outside of them
Yeah.
that will actually help be better at whatever it is that they need to be better in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it also, so basically you made the point, Gune, about how there are timelines that we set, and once you don't achieve a certain thing by the timeline that has been set, then you're considered a failure. And I think it even extends to a point where even if you do achieve that later on, it doesn't carry the same weight for people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we even internalize this ourselves, you know. And I know this is personal to me as well with my dissertation. Don't throw any shade on me. But I realized one of the see, they're shaming me because I could not finish what I started in time. But I realized really that I was also internalizing that idea of, I should have finished this at this time. I did not do it. I failed. And so it has just ruined my whole relationship with that piece. You understand? And I think it really has an impact on even how far people can go. Because if that's what you're thinking, once you lose it, you feel, no, it's not going to carry any value anymore. Yeah. It's not worth anything anymore. It wouldn't be the same as these other people's. You know, then that becomes a problem. And I feel it affects what we put out and how we even stop to just appreciate the work that we have put in to get to that point where we can say, I have been able to achieve this.
You're shaking the table I'm sitting on, and I don't like it.
We're all sitting on the table. She's calling me a dropout, but we're all sitting on the table.
You're shaking this table. But, you know, the point you made also reminded me of how, you know, when a person is not seen to be succeeding the way maybe society or their parents want them to succeed, it could push the parent to make huge life-changing decisions for that person that alters the person's life and, you know, and the way they exist in this world, just so that that child can succeed in the way that they want them to succeed. Whatever that child is doing at the same time, the parent is regarding as not good enough, because this is where I want you to be at this point in your life, and this is not where you are right now. So because of that, I am going to do this and this and this to get you back on the track that I want you to be on. Yeah. Eventually, that is how people find themselves doing things that they do not even enjoy, things that, you know, find themselves in careers that they don't even like, because, you know, this is what is expected of you, and these are the decisions that, you know, your parents have done in order to get you to be a successful person, quote unquote.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about it in terms of my current personal struggles with this PhD that wants to end my existence, right?
The table is broken.
No, because you know how I want to quit every day or two. I'm ready to quit.
I know,
but I'm thinking about how last year over the summer, like it got to the point where like if I didn't take a break, like I would have lost my sanity and my mind. And I'm thinking about how, like, for me, I already had this version of success in my head where I'm like, I need to be done in the 3 years. I need to be done January 2022. There's no way I'm going to be in school past that stage. And I'm just so glad that my supervisors were able to look at me like, girl, it's either 2020, you will not live to see 2022 if you're moving the way you're moving right now. Because I was literally in supervision meetings crying, because that's how bad my mental health was at that point. But I refused to see it, because I was like, I just need to push through. But then it's like, who am I pushing through for? Is that timeline for me? Or is it because I don't want to displease the people around me? And so when I made the decision, my supervisors made the decision for me to be like, nah, you have to take a break. I'm so glad that I did, and I felt a gazillion times better. And even the people that I thought that, they would feel some kind of, like, you know, family and people I care about, they were like, no, it's very important that you're doing that for yourself. Like, take the time that you need and get your head back to the space where it needs to be. Because what is a 3-year PhD if I'm going to come and die right afterwards or even before I finish it? What's the point?
And I think it's also a good thing to, you know, always, I mean, it's something you have to teach yourself and constantly remind yourself that you are where you need to be. Because if you're someone who believes in predestination, you know that, okay, I may have failed, I may have given up, you know, 100 times before, but this is the time that I was meant to get here. And because I got here at this time of my life, that's why I was able to have this many wins that I probably wouldn't have had if I had gotten here earlier. And then you're also able to appreciate the struggle that went through, you know, that was involved in you getting to where you are at that point. I always have to constantly remind myself that, you know, this is when I was meant to get here, and it couldn't have happened earlier than this. I had to go through this and this and this. And
also that it couldn't have happened later as well. So it might not have happened when people wanted it, but it happened at the right time.
At the right time
and it did not wait any minute after or any minute later, because this is the time that it was supposed to happen. So I think it's really, Hadi mentioned something really important about, you know, just talking to people you felt might have been disappointed and realizing, oh, these people are actually supporting me. And for me, it really just highlights how important it is to have a support system of people who are looking at you and telling you, no, you're not failing, you're doing your best, you're giving of yourself, and you may not be winning in this area in the ways that people probably expect, but here's every other thing that you have done and you've excelled in, you've succeeded in. So I think just taking that moment to center yourself and center how you are feeling away from the expectations that people have of you, that's really important.
And you know, as we're talking about this, I'm just reminded, well, it just came back to my mind that I used to have this 25 years old plan. Like, you know, by the time I turned 25, I would have had my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, had a good job, married, had one kid by then. You know, and then like now I'm here. I haven't had my master's degree yet, but I'm like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm where I need to be. And
but also fine. You have your bachelor's, you have your
my birth certificate, which for me, the birth certificate is a
postgraduate
course. So I already have my postgraduate.
Exactly. So for me, it's really just how do we measure those? So at the end of the day, you do for yourself, because you're young. I mean, by proxy, we also knew what was happening in law school, but
please, we all went to law school
together. We all went to law school together. We took that exam together and stressed through
and
it.
You and I went twice because we went with Musso too. So, and right now I'm going again with Maria. So, you know, but ultimately,
good luck. No, but this is gonna sound really corny, right? But I do this thing where it's like after consecutive failures. You know, 2018 was my year of failure. I was determined. But I remember towards the end of the year, I was in Gambia and I was standing at, you know, I was at Lebato Beach, and there was just so much peace that came over me, and I just kept on thinking to myself, with everything that happened, like God decided to bring me right here in this moment to stand, you know, right here. And if anything had changed, if things were less problematic, I wouldn't be enjoying the peace that I am having right now, currently in this moment. So whenever like I have a really, really peaceful moment in my head, I just think that a lot of things had to happen for me to get to where I am, and I'm really happy that I am where I am.
It's not corny. I think it really just also shows the value of appreciating where you are. Because without everything that had happened, I mean, you probably would have just gone to Lebato as any ordinary day, order a drink, sit there, watch the waves, and that's it. You know, but then that reflection probably would not have happened.
And I think for me, Tamid, what I've noticed is if I experience a setback with something, or I feel like I'm failing at something, the end result of that is always so amazing that I'm like, wow, okay, maybe this is why I'm only getting here at this point of my life. Because maybe if it had happened earlier, I wouldn't have had this major victory, you know, that I have right now. So for me, that's like now my thing is, you know what? What's meant for me would always come to me. And if I'm meant to do something, I would do it at that right time. And you know, I always come out on top, mashallah. Thank you, God, for all your wonderful blessings and everything. But it has just taught me to be patient with myself and be patient with the universe, and believe that the universe would always, always, always bring to me what is meant for me at the time that I needed the most.
That's such an important thing, because I know for me, I'm a control freak. So I have so much issues with control. And failure is one of those things that really humbles you, and you realize that, you know what, you're really not as in control as you think.
And Jama.
And it's okay for things to happen. Yeah. And it's okay for things to happen the way that, you know, you didn't have in mind. Because I'm also like, you know, I literally, if I function off schedules and I function off like plans for like months, and, you know, I have this thing where it needs to happen exactly the way like I have planned it. That comes to education, love life, everything. If I can't plan it, I will not get into it. So, like, to fail and to fail momentously and to fail very, very significantly, it really reminds you that, you know what, you're serving a greater good, and that good is not you. And you just have to let things happen.
Just go ahead and read my life.
Drag you.
Just go ahead and read my life. But I mean, coming back to the point I'm going about being patient with yourself, and obviously also just moving on with the conversation. I'm also thinking beyond just being patient with yourself. I think it also helps you to really also be patient with the younger ones in your family.
Yes.
Especially when you see them struggling the same way that you probably did. But obviously understanding that you're now in a position where you can probably support them such that they don't go through the exact same challenges and self-doubt and insecurity that you went through. So, and I mean, this is just basically based on, again, the conversation around comparison. It happens in the homes. It happens in schools. I mean, it's even with the rankings that happens in schools. Kimajal first, Kimajal second, Kimajal third. And even with the classes, A class, B class, C class, and then those in A class are looking down at those in E class, for example, like Nino Hamudara. So all of those things happen in a place where the system should have been looking at what are these ones good at. They may not be good at this, but they could be super excellent at this other thing. So how can we help them? How do we support them to be able to nurture this, to build on it, and to succeed in their own way at the things that they are good at?
You know, I have a cousin. I have a cousin who, when he was much younger, he was very good at drumming. Like he was just very artistic. He was a good dancer. He was a good drummer. Like Sabare, you hear him and you know, like, this is him drumming. And he was just naturally good at it. And I remember then I think it was my mom or my sister that I was telling that if he were born in, like, you know, a family outside of the Gambia, like a white family or Senegal somewhere, like, you know, he would be taken to a school of art, and then this talent would be built on. But right now he's studying some technology or whatever course, and I'm like, you're not studying this for you. It's basically your life is planned for your parents. Basically, sometimes it seems as if, and this is not, you know, do dollar to our parents, no, because like Yam said, one, a person cannot teach you what they don't know, and two, our parents want us to achieve things that they could not achieve, maybe because of financial constraints or, you know, or other challenges that they face. And that is a good thing. It's always a good thing to want better for your child. But sometimes I think in our society we have to examine why we push so much of our dreams and our aspirations on our children to a point where we never sit our children down and ask them what they want, and why, if our children are not doing what we want them to do, we see them as failures, as, you know, dombu teki, dombu bahu. You know, we need to examine that, because in as much as you want better for your child, you want your child to succeed, you also have to, you know, be mindful that your child is a whole person outside of yourself. They're a human being born with dreams, born with aspirations of their own outside of what you want for them. So, you know, I think these are things that we should also look at, because we have, for example, when we were at law school, at the law faculty, you had quite a few students who were there, not because they wanted to be there, they wanted to read law, because their parents wanted them to read law. So, you know, somebody is there studying and they don't even have the passion for that, they're just doing it. And some of them would eventually drop out. You know, I think that's a whole lot of pressure that parents put on their children, which, even though it comes from a good place, should be re-examined. You know,
that's also pretty personal for me, because you're saying this and I'm thinking of my own journey, and how, like, I know growing up my mom would always say, I'm working hard and I'm providing for you guys opportunities that I did not have, so that you can get better than I did. You understand? So always growing up I was like, my mom has a master's, I need to get at least a master's. If I can get more than that, then that's fine, but at least that's the bar. You understand? And I remember, like, the battle I had with her, because everybody knows small in a science class, then they're like, what were you doing there? And I wasted my whole 3 years doing something simply because, not just my mom, but also the school, because the school refused to register me for the art class. They were like, so aggregate, but no. If you don't want to go into the science class, then go find another school. It literally came to that point. And then when I left senior school, I knew I did not just want to continue doing this. So when I went to Morocco, I know it was really a battle. Mine was like, they might have architecture, they might have engineering, they might have medicine. These are the viable courses. But I knew that at that point, I was completely done. I absolutely wanted to do what I wanted. And I only realized the importance of that decision when I got into journalism school, and I was struggling in that school mainly because of the language. And every time it got tough, I'm like, if I did not choose this, if I did not love it, if I did not want it for myself, it would have been really easy for me to quit.
Yes.
So I spent all those 4 years, every time Sister Fema called, yeah, I'm a man, you say, you understand? But I knew I wouldn't do it because this is what I chose and I was doing it for myself. And I think like that's really important. That conversation needs to happen. That problem of parents basically leaving their dreams through their children, it can be really, really problematic.
Yeah, man, you know, my thing is, like, when I see creatives and they feel like they have to stifle their creativity and they have to, you know, get into some kind of 9 to 5 because their parents want that, I want to fight the parents. Because I'm like, why is it that your marker for success is so completely different from your child and you don't see that your child is clearly not happy and suffering because they're trying to keep you in a path where eventually they will either go down that path or they will just be unhappy for the rest of their lives. Please, Gambian parents, if any of you are listening to this and you have children that want to go into creative field and they are talented and you know you can clearly see that they're passionate, they're talented, you can offer them resources to follow their dreams, please help them and let them follow it. It's so, you know, sad and disheartening seeing so much talent, like from music to acting to, you know, just all over, and then you feel like you can't follow that because it don't look good in the community. What will people say if my child is a yes, Osmo don't be suneke rapper, Osmo don't be suneke actress. All of that. It's like what's like they're happy and they're really, really good at it. And eventually, and the thing is like once you're good at something and you have the support and you have the resources, you will make, not all the time, but you will make some kind of sustainable financial, you know, situation from it. So to make it financial, sit down with them and make a plan. Help them in one way or another to see like the viability of it, but don't just shut it down because you feel like, oh, okay, this is just not going to happen. This is it. Like I know even for me, like so I went into school with pre-med intention, blah 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 blah, but I took my first psychology class and I fell in love. Like for me, that was the most mind-opening class like I had ever taken in my entire life. So I knew from then on that I wasn't going to go down the pre-med route. But it took me till my 3rd year of uni, like 3.5 years into a 4-year degree. That's when I was like, okay, you know what? I'm switching my major. I mean, I still graduated like just 1 semester late, but it was just, and also, fun fact, people came to my graduation thinking that I was graduating with a different degree.
But you were graduating with a degree you wanted anyway, so a major win.
And I was happy. I was happy. Like, I'm telling you, the way my grades were skyrocketing and the way I was just in class front row and center, so happy that I was, you know, I had switched to psychology. But then I see that, and even now, it's like, I know that outside of my PhD, I still have a lot of creative endeavors that I want to do. If anyone knows me, like, you know, I like film, I like the idea of script writing and directing and stuff like that. And I know that down the line, once this degree is done and I give it to my mom, I'm going to pursue what I want to pursue. But like, you know, you feel like you have to, even when it comes to creatives and stuff, you have these things where it's like you have to put your career on hold until you have this degree down, 1 or 2 degrees, to appease your parents so that you won't look like a failure. So that you've at least hit their definitions of success before you can be successful in what you want to do.
Apart from maybe putting it on hold, sometimes your whole life, you never even get the chance to explore that fully, to explore your creativity. So a lot of the times, and this is so huge in Gambia, a lot of people who do creative work do it part-time. They do it in their spare time because their main hours are basically invested in, I guess, formal, viable employment, and their creative work really just takes the back burner. And I mean, we can go into a long ride around the burnout that comes with that, you know, how you've got to sacrifice a lot of your time and your well-being. And let me just keep quiet because this is a self-drag. This is a self-drag. But I think it's valid for all of us because, like, I think about all the things that we think about and how they really are creative projects. And one of our biggest, I know procrastination is a big one, but one of our other big stumbling blocks is just not being able to have the time to really explore like all of those ideas and really get into it like we would want, because we're too busy reporting to work at 8 a.m.
8 a.m. and closing at 5. Oh my god.
Goodness.
Well, yeah. Oh, Marcus,
And that whole 9 to 5, it's not even healthy. It's just,
it's not.
I don't get it.
It's so unhealthy, especially if you're doing a job which you know you can do from the comfort of your bed. I am a huge fan of working from home.
And COVID just taught us so much about why people don't need to wake up every day and go sit in an office. Why are we still doing that?
Your job is online and you have access to a computer and an internet access at home. Why are you waking up at 6 a.m., getting dressed up to go to an institution and sit before a computer to do the work when you can literally do the work?
And then for the majority of those hours, sometimes you're sitting there.
You're just sitting there.
It's not productive because those are not your productive hours even. And then you're just showing up.
Good. It's so good that we talk about productive hours, because some people are afternoon people. They start working. Night people, and some people are night people. Yeah. So if you hire a night person and you force that person to go into work 8 to 5, 9 to 5 or whatever, that is not their productive hours. You're not going to get the best out of them at that time. They're most likely just going to go to the office, just sit around chatting, doing nonsense, being online. And then they get home at night, then they're on, and that's when they actually do your work. But then that person is actually spending more hours doing work than they're supposed to. And I don't know.
And then if they come to the office, they're coming in and clocking in all of those hours and still don't meet the targets. Again, back to the topic of failure. It's like they're not competent. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. But we're not stopping to think, is it because of the system? Is it because of how we have put our structures together? Is this why people are not able to perform? You understand? So yeah. And I mean, the idea of failure again, and how we understand it, and generally just how we determine success and progress and stuff. I know we've talked about this a bit through the stories and the experiences and the self-drags that we have shared. But I mean, it would be interesting to also just know for ourselves, since we're talking about just doing things for ourselves and owning our journeys for ourselves. How do we define success? What does that mean for you? What does progress look like to you?
How do you want to go first?
Dr. Cisse?
Wow, you just put me on the spot. Wow.
Because she asked the question
I'm honestly,
because I don't have an answer for it as well, so I listen to you.
No, I think for me, honestly, success, the older I get, it's just been peace of mind.
Thank you.
So it stopped being about external factors, and it's more like, am I sleeping when I go to bed? Like, do I feel like I have done enough for myself? Have I met goals that I have set for myself? And, and for me, that's really what success has become. So it's been like less about what people will think of me outside and what people think I've accomplished, but it's been more internally. Like, right now it's more about learning to control my tongue. If I know how to be better.
Are you doing that for yourself or for other people?
I think for other people.
It's for me. It's for me. That one is actually bigly for me. If it was for other people, you know me, I don't care about what people have to think or say. So it's like for me, learning self-restraint, learning, just working on myself internally recently has been my version of success.
Okay. She left it out deep for us to fall into the water. Go.
I think success for me right now is just completing whatever tasks I've set out for myself or whatever goals I've set out for myself. And in completing that, I'm not looking at whether I come out on top or I come out at the bottom or whatever that would please society. Because for me, it's that, okay, I intended to do this and I did it. And for me, the mere fact that I did it is, enough success for me. And other aspects of success for me maybe would be, like I would consider myself really successful if I actually, finally get my relationship with God where I want it to be, my spiritual relationship with God where I want it to be. Like that would be the pinnacle of success for me, because, ultimately with everything that I want, like that is the one thing that I want to actually be, on track as I want it to be. Yes, so I think for me that would be the marker for success. So, and I think all the other things that society generally sees as success, owning a car, buying a house. For me, these are things that maybe I would do out of necessity.
Yeah.
Like if I were to buy a car, it would be okay. I've gotten to a point where I feel like I need to own a car, not because society thinks or feels like I should own a car at this point of my life. So yeah, success for me is very internal at this point. It's about what I feel like I need to do and getting to do that, whether society sees that as agreeable or not.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, at some point my version of success was marrying Michael B. Jordan. But,
you just have to put us to shame. You just have to put us to shame
in life.
You just have to put us to. So have you changed that? Is that still your goal?
I mean, we broke up, and it made me realize that there are more important things.
You didn't.
You did what? You did what? How does he say?
You didn't break up. He dumped you
on Twitter.
Hey,
please just come correct.
That's a conversation for another day.
What?
That's a conversation for another day.
Broke up. They broke up. Tell us your version of Michael B. Jordan even knew you guys were in a relationship. Imagine the audacity.
You said that with your chest.
She said that with the audacity of a man. How does he say? Wow, I'm shook at. Anyways, back to the topic. For me, I believe. So I've had to come into this, right? I've had to teach myself. I've had to unlearn a lot of things around what success really was, especially growing up as what people see a high achiever, and internalizing that and having that really beat me to a point where even when I don't fail, but even if I don't, so you're not completely failing, but if you don't get exactly what you're hoping for, then that becomes a problem if you don't appreciate it. So for me, really, my idea of success right now is being able to go to bed every night at peace with myself. This is really what my idea of success is now. So at peace with myself, and obviously this is not just about what I'm doing for myself, but it's also about the relationships I have with the people that I care about, and the people I say, these are my people. So it's with my family, it's with my friends, it's with my sisterhood groups. So that's basically what it is for me. And I'm really, really trying to learn to move away from just attributing success to what's related to career, what's related to education, what's related to everything else. For me, it's really when I go to bed at night and the lights are off and I'm lying there with myself, am I happy with myself? Am I at peace with myself? That is basically what my definitions are right now. Every other thing is a bonus. Every other thing is a plus. So I guess those things indicate progress in a way. It's like I'm doing this work because I also need to acknowledge I'm putting in that work and it's getting me results, and I will celebrate those results. But not really looking at that to a point where if I'm not getting it, then I feel like I'm a failure. And, sleep has been good.
I think I just want to make it clear that we're not saying that you should not attribute your success to your career.
No, not at all.
Like, we're not saying that. But, if you're looking, if you're taking your career as a marker for success, are you pursuing that to the detriment of other things that are very vital to your existence? Are you depriving yourself of sleep, of strong relationships with people? Are you doing things that are in the long term very harmful for you just to be successful in your career? Because ultimately you do a lot of things to get to the top, and then you get to the top and you look around and it's lonely.
This was it.
Like, this is it. Okay, I want to be the MD of so company. Now you're the MD, and now what?
Can't go further. Sometimes you can't go further than that.
You unless you go further than that.
And I think sometimes you have to think to yourself, who am I outside of this career? Like, who am I really? Who are the relationships I've cultivated? What am I if I am not in this 9 to 5? What am I if I'm not driving this Ferrari? What am I if I'm not doing so and so? And if you're not content with that person that you are outside of that, then you really need to reevaluate what your version of success is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a good point to go for a break. It's been pretty heavy out here. So we're just going to go for a quick break. When we come back, Musso continues. We're discussing failure, the fear of failure, and just societal pressure when it comes to success and succeeding. We'll be right back.
Musso. Alinimbara Gamia Musso Atela Baro Dunia Atela Tamu.
Welcome back from the break. You're listening to the Musso podcast. It's brought to you by Ndengone, Jama, and Hadi. And today we're discussing failure, something that we don't usually talk about in our society. And even when we do, we don't really go, I guess, deep into the issues to interrogate how it affects us, what we can do to change it. So on this episode, we're discussing failure, we're discussing societal pressure when it comes to what success looks like, who's successful, and what these markers of success look like. So before the break, obviously we talked a lot about basically what success means for us, how we've been able to struggle and perhaps even beat the odds when it comes to what the expectations were on us. And in this last part, of course, we'll be talking about a lot more about failure itself. So away from success, talking a lot more about failure. And an interesting concept that we had already, of course, discussed, Gone and Hadi, is the issue of, so we've discussed like the markers of success. What does it mean? How do we define it? But how do people also define failure? You understand? Because sometimes you get to a point where I'm trying to get something and I lose at that one thing, and all of a sudden I shut everything down. It's like I'm a failure, and every other thing that's working, every other thing that's running on, every other thing that you're succeeding at doesn't really appeal that much. Is not celebrated that much simply because you failed at one thing, or you've lost out on one thing, or you've not fully achieved something in the way that you were expecting or hoping. What are your thoughts on that?
I think for me, failure to me is, when I actively pursue something, actively go after something, and then I don't get it.
Yeah.
For me, that is failure. I failed at that. Like, there's a scholarship that I had applied for, and then, I'm just sitting down one night and I get this email that you have not been shortlisted for that scholarship.
Don't we hate those emails?
And for me, I cried instantly. And I remember the person I was with was like, "Is this why you're so sad that you're crying?" But to me, it felt like, oh my God, I have failed. Like, if I couldn't even get shortlisted, not even getting the scholarship, but if I couldn't even get shortlisted for this, then I have failed. And because of that, I internalized that so much that it stopped me from going actively pursuing other scholarships to looking at. I just shut. I was like, you know what? I tried this one. I didn't get it. That's it. I'm done. So it took like months and months and months for me to get out of that headspace and actually be like, okay, I didn't fail because I didn't get it. Yeah. Maybe there's a reason. There's something that I was missing. That's why I didn't get it. So maybe I should start looking at other options. And through that I then started looking at other options, applied to other things, and I had some positive feedback. Yeah. So, for me, that is failure. Actively putting my mind on something, my text my healthy better, work towards it, and then I don't get it. I'm like, oh my God, it's over. And the way I internalize that is so bad because I just wouldn't go anywhere near anything that's related to that, ever again. So I've had to teach myself to not see, losing something or not getting something as failure.
Complete failure.
Yeah, as complete failure. No, I didn't fail. I just didn't get it because it wasn't mine to get at this particular time. Yeah, it's a hard place to get to yourself, but when you do, navigating this world, especially navigating your career field, becomes a lot less stressful.
It's a lot more freedom.
Yeah, there's a lot more freedom. Like, okay, I didn't get it because it's not mine. I mean, it's not so easy that the moment you tell that yourself, you get into a good one. No, it's something you have to constantly remind yourself. I didn't get it. It's not my fault that I didn't get it. It's just not meant to be mine. I would do better next time. I'd try to find ways to fix what I may have done wrong to get it. And then it becomes easier.
And I think in the moment, it's also okay to just be sad about
it.
Because that's something that you really wanted.
You wanted. Yeah,
and
it's
beyond
okay
just
to be
wanting
sad.
it, you did the work required to be able to get there.
Yeah.
And for me, sometimes the way I see it is, okay, I was reaching out for this, but there may have been thousands of other people who were reaching out for this. So maybe somebody else deserved this better than me, or put in a better application than I did, and so they got it. Yeah. So that point about trying not to internalize it to a point where it stops you from reaching out to other opportunities, I think that's really important. Honey?
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, and it comes back to the quote about you're really never too good to fail.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because and you're right in terms of like I think you get traumatized when you put in a lot of work for something and then you don't get it, to the point where you are scared to even look at anything in that direction and you want to run headed towards the next direction. But it's so important that you sit with it and you're like, okay, you know what, it didn't go right this time, let's try again and see what happens. Because the first time is not always the right time.
Yes. Yeah.
And your opportunity will come when it needs to come. You just have to be ready for it. Because it's the same going in, like for me, like I said, 2018 was the year of failure. I woke up on my birthday to an email that I didn't get a scholarship that I needed. Imagine that's the first thing I read in the email. Yeah, and I went straight to get a facial. I went straight to the spa. I said, I can't do this. No, but it's like, at that moment, like I was just, you're defeated completely, and you don't see what could possibly happen next. You don't see that, good can come out of it. You're just like, you're done for. But I remember all the goodness that came out of that specific failure. And it makes you not, like, once you accept that, okay, this happened, and then you explore other avenues and opportunities, you realize that failure is not necessarily a bad thing. So, I mean, I still define my failures. We're still growing. So it's like, we still know better, but then these ideas have been so ingrained in us that it's hard to let go of. But I know that I still define my failures as not being able to, like, setting out a goal for something and not being able to reach it, or applying for something and not getting it. But I'm trying really, really hard to lessen that as, a definition of failure, and just more like, again, like I said, looking inwards and just realizing. And also I'm trying to remove failure from my vocabulary.
Yes.
Because not everything is a failure. It can just be a setback. That will propel you into something better.
Or a loss.
And I think something relating to that we also always have to be mindful of is building up some form of resentment for people who get things that you think you failed at getting. Okay, yes. I mean, we're all human. And it happens to all of us in one way or another. Jama and Gone Hadi, we're all competing for this laptop, and then Jama gets the laptop, and then I feel some form of resentment, like, why would Jama get the laptop? I'm smarter than her, I have more experience than her, I'm more this than her. But you have to always remind yourself that you didn't get it because it's not yours. It's for what is yours. I always remind myself that so do get nobody can withhold what is meant for you. Even if you were in the tiniest hole, it would wait for you at the mouth of that hole. You come out and you would get it, or it would in fact come in there and meet you there. And what's yours is yours. So we also need to work on that. It happens to all of us. We build resentment, sometimes even unknowingly. You unknowingly resent someone, and you don't even know why you resent that person. And when you dig deep, then you realize that I actually have some form of resentment for this person because they've achieved this and this and this, and I am yet to get there. And because of that, I feel like, oh, well, they don't know anything. Why are they there? They're there because they are meant to be there. Even if you personally believe that they're not qualified enough to be there, they shouldn't, but they're there because that that is theirs, and they will get it. So that's something I think we should all work on.
Absolutely. I think even beyond what's yours will always find you. What's not yours will never find you. It will never find you. You're going to lose it. Yeah. You're absolutely going to lose it. And I think a lot of peace comes with that understanding. That manluma yala binal. Obviously, that's for people who believe in God. It comes with a lot of whole lot of peace. And
you go to bed knowing that, okay, this I think I can't remember if it was a conversation we had or something I read. It was about Sarahe, giving out charity. And someone said, the person said they look at charity as, I have this and it's this person's luck and they're supposed to get it from me. So wherever you are in this world, you would meet with that person and you would give them that. Even today, it's someone you would never see again. You are the person who's meant to give that thing to them. And
it's funny you're saying this.
Yeah, there was another example where the person, it was something I read on Twitter, I think. The person said, an apple is grown somewhere in Argentina. It's, plucked, shipped, whatever, treated, shipped all the way to wherever you are. for you to eat it because you are the person who's meant to eat that apple. That particular one was meant for you. Yeah. So I think if you look at it that way, you go to bed with, a lot of peace because whatever you didn't have in that day, you were not meant to have, and whatever was meant for you, it would get to you.
Yeah. I think you usually see this quote. I'm not sure whether it's hadith or something where people say,
that's the one
you may want a thing when it is harmful for you, and you may not want a thing when maybe that's beneficial for you. Yeah. And I know at some point I really adopted this thing of when I pray for people, I'm like, you understand? And at some point, when I made the prayer for someone, I was like, they just want to and then I had to stop and I'm like, okay, maybe I can say it in my head without voicing it out to a person who might feel like I'm placing a condition on the prayer. But I felt like that was really important. Like sometimes we reach for things that are really not best for us, and sometimes we have it and it leads us down a path where maybe you're dealing with regret and all sorts of negative feelings that impact you way more than what you would have held if you had lost out on that opportunity, for example.
I'm just going on and on, but I think it's in Surah Kaf. There's this verse where, I think it was Al-Hidr who killed a baby, and then I think it was with Prophet Musa, and he was asking him, why did you kill the child? And in the end, when they were parting, he told him, I killed the child so that God would bring them a child that's better for them, something like that. So,
there was a whole lot of questions. There were a lot of questions. Why did you do this? Why did you put a hold or destroy the ship? And it's like, there's a rich king who goes after people with bullshit and things like that. So there's a lot of lessons in that, in knowing that whatever you lose or whatever failure you experience is because that's what's good for you. That's what's best for you in that point. If you believe in God and a higher power, you would believe that is what's best for you. God sent that failure your way because He has something better for you.
Oh yeah, and there's this one too that I really like, where it's like if something is meant for you, even if it's underneath a mountain, like it'll find you, and if it's not meant for you, even if it's between your two teeth, like it will not reach you. Yeah. So no matter how close something is that you think you're close to get, if it's not for you, it just will not be for you. And I think it's just what's important is learning how to be resilient.
Yes.
And not give up. Instead of focusing on and not give up, because once you learn to be resilient, then you'll be better with failure. You'll take it more as a learning opportunity than something that's just come to destroy your life or something that your village people have sent for you. So I think that it's really important to just look at it from that perspective, because every situation you just have to see what can I gain from this, like what can I learn from this? And then you apply it to the next one.
And I'm also thinking Ngo is a very important point about building resentment for people who probably have the things that we want or we're reaching for, but also just our own internalized beliefs of failing because we could not reach a certain thing or get a certain thing we were reaching out for. And I'm just thinking, what are some of the things that we're pushed to do because of this? I know, like, the example you gave basically answers this question, but also, like, what are some of the things that people are pushed to do? So, for example, earlier in the conversation, we talked about, the issue of irregular migration back way, and obviously marriage also came into the question. But how do we see people just push themselves beyond their limits, beyond their values, beyond their beliefs, to be able to fit into that mold where people can say you're successful?
Yeah, even in terms of like you end up stealing, you end up doing so many, things that are just not necessary. And I wanted to touch onto the marriage bit because people will really choose that harmful traditional practice just to please other people.
You need to stop referring to marriage as a HTP.
No, but it's true because once you reach a certain age, all of a sudden it's like once you're like maybe 25, you're a spinster if you're not married in our communities. Yes. But it's like maybe that's not someone's path. And that's completely okay. So it's like you need to,
it's destined for like when they're 40 or something. But
yeah,
people
or never, and that's fine.
People would look at you and like a grown woman, maybe a woman in her late 30s, her 40s. When people look at, they wouldn't say, "Oh, she's a doctor. She has this." No, they would say, "Hi, They're not married anymore. They haven't achieved anything because a man has not said, I want to marry this person. Like, that is the hallmark of failure. Yeah. And just to answer the question raised by Jama as well, I think one thing that is very common in our society that I think is a result of people, not only them failing and wanting to do better, but also them wanting others to fail. Yeah. Because it's not enough that you're not achieving things, but somebody else is achieving and you want that person to fail. And because that leads people to do a whole lot of silly things. Like that's a whole episode on its own. That's a whole episode of its own, but we're going to touch on it. There's a huge sitting through tradition. For people who don't speak Wolof, that is like taking someone to Marabu or, practicing basically juju or witchcraft on someone because you want that person to fail. That is a huge part of us. You walk in the streets, you come to a chiller, like a street that's like four junctions, a crossroad, and then you find all sorts of eggs, ashes, some form of leaves thrown there. Some people would go into their offices and they find somebody has left, an egg on which they've written all over in, Arabic or whatever, or somebody has left some form of juju on your seat. I've heard a personal experience of someone who just developed this mysterious illness because they were meant to travel for work. And this mysterious illness disappeared the day that flight for that trip left the country because that person, gave up their seat or whatever, their representation on the trip and said, I am too sick to go. And the moment that flight departed, that person was well, like 100% well, and this person was so sick they couldn't even stand up a few hours before. So
don't you see it in football players?
Yeah, and football players too. I know some. The leg problem. So sitting to is a huge part of our culture, and majority of people who go to these marabouts, they don't go there to better themselves or better their lives. They go there to destroy other people, to destroy other people's lives, because for you, it's like, okay, I'm not doing well enough and this person is succeeding and they cannot succeed. They shouldn't succeed. So they must fail at whatever they're doing. So, I don't know that. That's a whole episode.
They're also doing it to people who are probably in a position where when they succeed, they could help you. Yes. You could also be uplifted through that person's success. You can benefit from that person. But then we're just blinded by this whole idea of, kill and listen. It even comes to the point of how people love you, how other people love you, how they admire you, how they relate with you. Even that can be a problem to people, and they could just, like you said,
and how generally we just contribute to other people's failure. We should, because even within families, you would have somebody who's doing better than the rest of them, and maybe this person is sending over money for you to take care of yourselves, and you're wasting that person's money and their property and their resources, basically contributing to that person's failure instead of helping that person build up, because they're not only carrying themselves, they're carrying you along. So I think there needs to be a whole episode on how Gambians contribute to other Gambians' failure by sitting to in, by destroying their property, by yahasen der, by just it's a whole
by not paying enough.
Yes, by not paying enough for your business as well,
for your services,
or they borrow money, or they take your goods on credit. It's like every week on Twitter there's someone complaining about people who owe them money and they haven't paid them back. You're basically contributing to the person's failure because you're ruining that person's business by not paying for the goods or services that you took from them. So, we also need to really look at how we contribute to other people's failures, aside from, how we deal with our own failures. How are we making other people fail at the things that they're doing, or, suffer huge setbacks at the things they're doing, because of our actions, or, our words, or, sometimes even our inactions, our just sitting back and folding hands, how that, hurts someone.
Yeah. I think those are really, really great examples of what we see, people do, the extent to which people go. And I think even with so we were talking about the topic of marriage, for example, and even with marriage and how, women even get into that, you decide, I want to get married, or you have somebody you can get married to. Once you get in, then the goalpost shifts. So it's about, when are you having children? You understand? So you get married for a year or two, people don't see a bump. It's when are you having children? Loiha. And
When are you
once you
when are
have
you
the
having
first
a
one,
child? After the first one,
after the
yes.
first one, it's like, hey, kid in the first one laraka.
Araka. Mhm.
And when you have like 2 girls, 3 girls, legi mom indil gore. So it never really
You're
stops.
saying all that, but are you the one feeding the children?
It never really stops. It never. So, and for me, I think this is what we need to understand, especially as young people, is that the goalpost is always going to shift.
Yes.
You understand? You're always going to achieve things, and people are always going to find bigger things to say, this is what you now need to achieve. This is what you now need to aspire to. So again, the point around, you know, how we define success as peace of mind and being happy with what we've been able to achieve, for me, that is really significant.
And setting your goals for yourself.
Your own
Don't
goals.
set your goals to according to what society thinks, you know, where society thinks you should be or what society thinks you should have. No. Your goals are your goals. And in addition to that, there's also the issue of, you know, how we regard people who are basically not formally educated as failures. And you know, I think a lot of us have done that. I have done that as well. People who do not necessarily have degrees. So you could be, you know, friends with a group of people, and then somehow you decide to go to school. You now have a degree, and those people don't have degrees, and you see yourself as above them, as better. And man, I know I may have done that, or I may have enabled someone doing that. But you know, we do that. But then when you look at these people, they may not have a formal education that you have, but they're probably running businesses. They're doing things, you know, they're taking care of themselves and their families by whatever means that, you know, they're able to do that. So I think we also need to cleanse our minds of that, and you know, not attaching success to a piece of paper. People are meant to have different paths to success, whatever success is for them.
Yeah, I think you brought a good point in terms of like the degrees, because we see it in like political spheres how Suniki Amud degree, Suniki Amud some kind of diploma, then you automatically assume that they're going to be horrible as politicians. So we're automatically disregarding people as not being smart or capable because they don't have a piece of paper. That a lot of the time you can even cheat to get that piece of paper. So a degree doesn't show integrity. It doesn't account for anything. If anything, it just teaches people how to manipulate better.
Exactly.
So it's not like a politician that doesn't have it, like, you know, it does not stop oppression in any way. So voting for someone just because they have like they look like they're educated or something doesn't mean that they're going to be able to be the ones to change the country. And I'm not saying that not having a degree means that you're a good politician either, but it's really important to, you know, look at what that person's values are and what that person's track record is and how they've been, like, you know, in the community and stuff like that, to define how they will be as politicians, and not just look at them like, hey, kida fa am degree man, kida fa jang,
Yeah, I remember when I was working at the CRC and we'd go on our tours, and you know, a lot of people up country, they would say, well, what they would ask you, you know, well, what if we say university degrees, but what has these people, these educated elites are the ones who have ruined the country. People have basically said that the educated elite, the people with degrees, are the ones who have ruined the country. They're the ones who have ruined the economy. So why should we emphasize on having, you know, a university degree as a qualification for example, a president?
Yeah, having an education, literally, it just means that you went and you got a piece of paper that says, oh, okay, you know something about a certain topic. It doesn't mean that you are well versed in anything. Sometimes people can graduate and not even still be able to write proper essays.
Exactly.
So it doesn't mean that you're a valid teacher. It doesn't mean that you're a valid doer. It just meant that you stuck through one thing for 4 years and that's it. People like Thomas Sankara, you know, they didn't have these big degrees, and look at what he did for Burkina Faso. So it's very big. It's something that I always look very shook at when people automatically assume that degrees are, you know, and that's coming from me, someone that basically has spent her entire life in school. That's coming from me. That
if anything, they get you into places. That's really, I feel like that's what they are for. And it's interesting because yesterday I saw somebody talk about, you know, this phrase we use, knowledge is power, knowledge is power. And she was interrogating that. It's like, knowledge is not power if you're not using it for anything. So application is power.
Yes, I saw that.
Application of that knowledge is power. Implementing that knowledge, you know, that's where the power lies. Because if you have the knowledge and you're not doing anything with it, then you might as well not have it.
And listen, we're not saying don't go get a degree or whatever.
Get your education.
Get your education, because we live in a world where you know your value is basically attached to how many degrees you have and whatnot. But what we are saying is, do not regard people who have not had the privilege, because getting an education, especially higher education as a Gambian, is a privilege. So we need to stop regarding people who have not had the privilege as failures or as less than. And this transcends into even our institutions, our public institutions. The way we regard support staff, they are less educated than you are, so you treat them like crap because you know they're failures. They're in school and whatnot. The way we treat drivers, the way we treat our mates in Minani security and things like that. So yeah, I think that's something we should look at.
Okay, because it's a form of gatekeeping. Because even when it comes to degrees, they'll try and make it seem like the degree you get from Gambia is less valid than the degree that you're getting from
Oh my God! As a UTG alumni, I know exactly how that feels. I know exactly how that feels, and this is not even coming from people outside. This is coming from Gambians looking at you and telling you, well, why did you study at the UTG? It's not a good school anyway, blah, blah, blah. So even, not even having a degree, but even where you get your degree is seen as some form of a failure. If you got it from UTG, if you got it from somewhere in England, oh my God, you studied in England, please.
But yeah, so again, I think for me, it really just re-emphasizes how, shallow sometimes these markers can be. And that's basically what we're all just following, your scholarship, so then, so value, you didn't pay for yourself to go to school, that kind of stuff. So there's so many things that we just create out of the blue and use them to measure people's success and people's worth and people's value. And I think, it needs to go in the bin. So a lot of talking on this episode. That's something we've not failed at yet. But I think it's also been really of course this is not something we can exhaust in one episode. It's not something we can in even 3-4 episodes. But I feel like we've been able to really touch on certain things that can, get us to even talk more about it, dig deeper, try to understand what our experiences have been. And this is also for you listening to us. What have our experiences looked like, and how can we contribute to changing that reality? How do we support those who are probably going through those challenges? Maybe it's by speaking up for them in a place where they may not be able to. Maybe it's by sharing how you may have navigated a situation. And that's really what we're getting into now. How have we dealt with our failures? Or the losses, basically. How have we dealt with our setbacks? Since we're trying to change the language as well. But even for the things that we absolutely consider failures, because that's valid as well, how have we been able to deal with that?
I think for me, recently, or over the past year or so, I've come to the realization that when I suffer setbacks, I may sit in a corner, mope and stuff, but I don't give up. Like, I've had to recognize that in myself, that okay, I failed at this, but after I failed at it, I did get up and I did do this and this and this about it, and I was able to change that narrative. So I've realized that about myself, and it's really important that you not give up. Especially if the setback you suffered is in relation to something that you really wanted, it's in relation to your goals, or something that's really important to you. Not so important to society, but to you as a person and your existence and your happiness. Then you should. It's okay to take a few days, a few weeks, be sad, be more, be angry about it, do whatever you need to do, grieve that loss, because it's not only losing people that we should grieve, but losing things that are dear to us, or opportunities that we wanted. Grieve that loss, but then don't wallow in that grief as well. Get out of it, and then go after, look up for something better and go after that. So don't give up. Keep fighting, fighting. Things will change for you. Things will happen for you. And also, I think for me, whenever I suffer a setback and I'm going after that thing again, I try to find, a different perspective. Like, for example, if it's an application, I would try to, look for help from other people, consult other people. Maybe sometimes they're able to help you see where you may have gone wrong. If the setback is as a result of your inadequacy, sort of that. Other people could help you realize what you could have done better, what you could have what you could have done better now to get what you want to do, and that's always important. Always consult people and never give up.
Over to you, Hattie. How have you been dealing with setbacks and losses and failure? What are your tips?
So for me, I really try to make myself feel good. So I have my little thing of, in no particular order, I'll sleep, I'll order some wings, I'll Netflix, yoga, I'll pray, and obviously I like the spa, mani-pedi, stuff like that. So I want to always, because for me it's a way of detaching myself from that failure. So it's a way of saying that, look, you're still good enough for yourself, that this failure doesn't define who you are. So once I'm able to do that and like really get myself back in the space where I like myself and I like who I am in that moment, then I can go ahead and try again. But it's really, really always super important for me to do things that make me feel good in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like I'm like a coping mechanism. So I have to cope first, and I have to like be okay with who I am in the moment, and then I can try again.
I get what you're saying, though. Taking care of yourself, sleeping is really a really good coping mechanism. Sleeping and eating, not like Jamado, eating 24/7. No.
Yeah. Chop life before life chops you. That's the slogan, and that's what I'm living by going for. And I think that is how I deal with failure. That's my response. But I think one thing that I've also been learning to do, that I've picked up as well, is just celebrating my quick wins. So the little things, I know to celebrate them, and it allows me to put myself in a space where when I fail at something, or I lose out on something, or I face a challenge or a setback, I'm able to remind myself, oh, you were just celebrating this, so all is not lost. So again, it's about the point of not giving up. And I think the practice with this came with Mibet. So I've spent the last year submitting the film to festivals and all. So what the public see basically is just the official selections, the awards, the things that we announce. But I get to see all of the emails that come back into my inbox and say, sorry, your film was not selected. And that's actually in the majority of the submissions. And I have to teach myself. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and that's the first thing I see on my phone, and it just ruined my whole day. And I had to teach myself, maybe it wasn't selected, not because it's not good, because you know what you have produced, and you know it's excellence, and other people have seen that excellence. Maybe it's just not the place for your film. Maybe this festival is not for your film. Maybe this year is not for you at this festival. So that has really allowed me to put myself in a place where now when I get those emails, like, okay, fine, we'll try again some other time, or we'll wait for the next one. But it's really taught me to just stop and think about, celebrate the wins. You understand? Think about the failure, be sad, like you said, go through the motions, go through your feelings, because that is valid as well, so you don't keep it in there and allow it to build into the resentment that you were talking about. But also just allow yourself to celebrate your wins. Allow yourself to just embrace everything that is working, and allow yourself to celebrate you and what you have been able to do to get to that point. I know we have an episode will be coming soon around, humility and all the works around why we don't celebrate ourselves and our wins and all of that. But for me, to be honest, once I got to that point where I realized, you know what, you need to do this for yourself. So it's okay if you want to shout it out loud. It's okay if you want to go maybe share it in a friendship group. It's okay if you want to keep it to yourself and celebrate your Kena, but celebrate in the ways that you feel work best for you. And for me, like, it's been working really well. The only one that's not been able to beat completely is a dissertation one, and hopefully this year I'll get that out of the way and just find peace.
We'll graduate when we graduate, because we're all going through the master's program. But I like that you talked about the middle submissions, because I think one time Beyonce said that, Queen B, she said that people say she has won 24 Grammys, but nobody talks about the 40 that she lost. So, people only see your wins, and basically your losses are just meant for you to deal with quietly. And I think that's what makes dealing with failure, difficult. But what we can also learn from that is losing 40 Grammys did not stop her from making music and, getting to win 24 Grammys. So, you keep fighting, you keep pushing, keep putting out better work. And then, eventually people would not be able to even ignore you or the work you're putting out.
Yeah, but I think it's been really important. For me, it's really how do we continue to extend grace to ourselves
Yes.
and to other people in situations where we feel like we have failed at something, in situations where we feel like we've lost out on something, and it's really kept us down. So how do we extend grace to ourselves first? And then also extend that grace to other people who may be going through that kind of situation.
And if all else fails, just go back to Beyonce.
Yes.
Yep.
Listen, you watch the Coachella performance and you'll be ready to get up again.
Yep. And she's reminding us again, you're never too good to lose. You're never too big to lose. You're never too smart to lose. It happens, and it happens when it needs to happen.
Yeah.
Good way to get into our favorite segment, my favorite segment of the
Mine
episode.
too.
It's time for our Musso of the week, and we try to basically identify the Musso of the week based on the topic that we're discussing. And Go will do us the honors.
Whew, okay, so this Musso for the week is very personal to me because this is someone that I look up to and someone that I have seen fall multiple times, countless times. This woman has fallen, but she always gets up and she gets back to the top. Like this woman,
tall,
and she stands tall and proud. And you know, this is someone who, when she was younger, she suffered major setbacks that you know, a lot of young women have suffered in this country, and they've basically lost a chance at having a good life. But she has gone ahead to get a bachelor's degree. She has 2 master's degrees. She's in a leadership position in her institution. She's mentoring other young people within, you know, the field that she's working in. She lectures at, you know, she gives lectures at an international university as a guest lecturer. She holds up her sisters, her siblings, amazing person all around. And I just want everyone to recognize the amazingness or the beauty, the kindness, the sweetness that is my big sister, Mbehedi Gang. She deserves this recognition. And when we spoke about this topic, her name was the first one that came to mind because I couldn't think of anyone more deserving of this recognition. If you're looking for someone who has fallen 100 times and risen back up, standing tall, it is her. It is her. It is her. Yes. So Daddy, our big sister, she's not only she's not everyone's big sister. It's weird that every time I have friends, somehow they meet her and then she always steals my friends. She
adopts all of us.
Yeah, she adopts all my friends. It has happened with Isa Kubadi, with Tida, with Jama, I'm just But yeah, she's our big sister, and Daddy, you deserve this, and we're so proud of you, and we love you. Yes.
And we appreciate you.
Yes,
and
Madam Deputy Diplomat
Extraordinaire.
Wow.
Mashallah.
Yes.
All the mashallah. So that's our Musso for the week. Mbehedi Gang, Bengona's big sister, our associate big sister as well. Absolutely celebrating her. She defines all of the resilience that we have spoken about. Just beating the odds and really looking at society and saying, you know what? Fuck off.
Yes.
She did that.
She did that.
She did that.
Yes.
And we're super proud of
And we hope you're also proud of yourself,
Yeah.
that when you look in the mirror, you know that you're the strongest person we know,
Yeah.
and you're a fighter, and we all look up to you, and we know you're going to do amazing things for Gambians. You're already doing amazing things for Gambians, and we know you're going to keep doing even more. So thank you. Thank you for your service, Mrs. Gay. Yes.
Jack.
Jack.
Jack Gay.
I'm saying mashallah.
Yeah, all the mashallah.
All the mashallah.
All the mashallah. I think that's a very fantastic way for us to end this episode. It's been a very wonderful chat. Thank you for sticking with us right on to this point.
As always, I mean, we know today's was quite long and quite heavy, but we thank you for tuning in, for listening. And, you know, as always, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, please do not hesitate to reach out, you know, talk to us. So let's hear how y'all, you know, about y'all's failures, how y'all feel about the topic and more. We're always open to lots of conversations and discussions. Thank you as always. Thank you for giving us this, you know, for accepting our platform and for tuning in every week.
Yeah, and in case you're wondering how to reach us, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram as at Musso Podcast. That is MUSSO Podcast, no space, nothing. So yeah, reach out to us. We'll be waiting to hear your feedback.
Yeah, and the conversations are always interesting. We love reading your comments. We love reading your feedback. We love reading your reactions to our takes. So keep them coming. Gone has said, we're on social media everywhere. Keep them coming. Just an opportunity to thank Right Click for journeying with us on this podcast. Handling everything technical production on that side. Thanks a lot to Ibu Jaita. We will be coming back to you again next week on all your podcasting platforms.